Now on Indianapolis This Week.
There are actions I have the legal authority to take as president.
The president makes his move on immigration reform. We have reaction from Indiana leaders.
This in your face, I'm going to do it my way.
Plus, what one reform champion says this will mean for people in Indiana. And the other declared Democrat running for mayor of Indianapolis. We go one-on-one with Ed Delaney.
RTV6, the Indy Channel. This is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
On this Sunday, we begin with the big announcement from President Obama, the controversial decision to take executive action to reform the nation's immigration laws. In a primetime address on Thursday, the president announced a series of executive actions on immigration, ones that will change enforcement of those laws. President Obama says the move will focus those efforts on criminals, gang members, and felons. It would also allow some 5 million people who are in the United States illegally to remain in the country without fear of deportation. That group includes mostly parents and young people.
Mass amnesty would be unfair. Mass deportation would be both impossible and contrary to our character. What I'm describing is accountability, a common sense middle ground approach. If you meet the criteria, you can come out of the shadows and get right with the law. If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up.
Not hard to predict the reaction from the Indiana's top Republicans. Governor Mike Pence himself, considering a presidential bid, says that President Obama's action is an end run around the democratic process. He's exploring legal action against the president. And Senator Dan Coates tells us the president is ignoring the will of the American people.
I have a sworn oath to represent the people of Indiana here, to legislate their interest. And the president has basically said that means nothing. I'm going to violate the Constitution, and I'm just going to do what I want to do as an executive. I think that's an in-your-face, and how tragic. After the message that was sent here in November about getting together and working on these major issues, we reach out and the president basically sticks it in our face and says, nope, going to do it my way. Forget about legislating. You guys don't matter.
Now, the president is not getting much support from Indiana's top-ranking Democrat either. Senator Joe Donnelly saying it is clear the immigration system in this country is broken, and only Congress has the ability to change the law to fix it. But he goes on to say, in his words, I am as frustrated as anyone that Congress is not doing its job, but the president should not make such significant policy changes on his own. And joining us now is Angela Adams. She's the president of the Indiana chapter of the American Immigration Lawyer Association. AILA has 13,000 members nationwide and about 100 in Indiana. She's practiced law for a decade in our state. Is this amnesty?
No, Rafael, it's not. It's really just an administrative approach to fixing some of the issues within the immigration system that we all know is broken. It's going to help thousands of families across the state and in our communities, people who are already here, already working, already part of the fabric of our diverse community, and helping them to come above board and give them some kind of something to work and to live in the United States, playing by the rules.
It is an underground population. Do we have any idea how many? Is it in the thousands? And if so, where will they go to get connected and become legal?
Very good question. I think we've heard, nationwide 4 to 5 million, but probably estimating in Indiana in the thousands. But we really don't know because by the very nature of the population, as you said, undocumented, hard to put a number on, right? Hard to count. People can, as American Immigration Lawyers Association, we're very concerned that notarios, or notary publics that will come out of the woodwork and try to take advantage of the community,
yeah.
Right? And so we want to make sure to warn people that there is no process yet. There's no form. There's nothing in place yet. We have a couple, probably 90 to 180 days out, and make sure to talk to a qualified attorney or to an organization in the community that works with qualified attorneys. We're actually going to be hosting some information sessions with the Immigrant Welcome Center.
And that information will be on their website. Are you expecting, at the point that the president signs the executive order, and you can see some details, are you expecting some long lines? Are you expecting a lot of families to say, I want to become legal?
I think, you know, legal is a term of art. I think this is really not a long-term solution. This is a temporary Band-Aid approach, and hopefully Congress will provide a long-term solution in the coming months. But what they can do is get employment authorization. And so one of these populations is parents of U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident kids. And so, yes, I think there would be a little bit of a backlog, but I think, you know, the other great thing about this is it's going to pay for itself with the filing fees and everything. So there really isn't any kind of strain on the budget.
Immigration law is already very complicated. Has the president just made this issue even messier? It is possible that the next president could say, I don't want this to happen. So then what happens to these thousands of families? I mean, have we just created a bigger, confusing problem for all these families?
Actually, I think it's just the opposite. I think it's going to put a face, put a number on the issue. I think it's really going to allow us, as the American people and Congress, to see the big picture and to realize and recognize the importance of immigration reform to our economy, to our communities, to national security.
You work in the community. You know many of these families. You also hear the rhetoric from people who say they should go home, they should not be here, they're illegal, go to the back of the line, get back on a plane. So how do we bridge that gap so that people can understand that these are working families that in many cases are either working in their McDonald's or cleaning their hotel rooms or maybe working, you know, just down the street from them?
I think two things come to mind. Number one is they're already here, already working, and we welcomed them to come. They came because we welcomed them. And then the second thing that comes to mind is it's legally virtually impossible for someone to go back and come back the way that our current laws read. That's the very problem. People say, why can't they just get legal, or why can't they just, you know, go sign up or come the right way? That's the very problem that we're facing right now. There is no right way. There's no rule to play by. There's no category of eligibility for many of these people to fit into that are currently working and currently paying taxes and have family members that are here. So that's the problem, and that underscores the need for Congress to really look at, you know, pushing this forward.
And I'm sure you're looking for more details, a very complicated issue. Angela Adams, thank you so much for coming in. Please come back again. I'm sure the topic, as the executive order comes down, we'll be talking about this.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Coming up, our political insiders talk the fallout of the president's executive action, including that possible lawsuit, plus why one Indiana senator refers to Congress as a miserable failure. That and much more when Indianapolis This Week continues. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. Time for the roundtable with longtime political reporter Mary Beth Schneider and our political insiders Lara Beck, the Democrat, and Abdul Hakim Shabazz with IndyPolitics.org. Immigration, Mary Beth, the big news this week.
The very big news this week. And in addition to it being national news, it really has a state impact because Governor Mike Pence is very much against it and threatening to file a lawsuit. Is that good politics or good government?
It's neither, actually. It's absolutely neither. It is. It's a colossal waste of money. Number one, that we will all be paying for through a lawsuit, and it's definitely the move of somebody who's going to be running for president in 2016 or wants to run for president in 2016. It's just it's embarrassing, I think, for Indiana.
Then he must think it's good politics if he's got 16 on his mind.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I understand the governor's frustration. Matter of fact, if you go sort of beyond the rhetoric, everybody, Republicans and Democrats, are frustrated at this issue. I don't know necessarily what their legal options are, because immigration is clearly the purview of the federal government, which the courts have said time and time again. And what the president did is merely extension of pre-existing, you know, legislation. So, I mean, I can understand sort of that frustration, but I don't know necessarily if running to court and filing a lawsuit is going to do the state of Indiana any good.
One of the things that I noticed too about after the president's speech and the response from a number of Republicans is that it's all focused on the president's action. It's not focused on really fixing the immigration issue. You know, George Bush, former President Bush, said family values don't stop at the Rio Grande, and so no one is offering solutions. No one is talking about it. They're just focusing on who they call the emperor-in-chief, and I think it's absolutely embarrassing that they're doing that.
And the state's record when it comes to attacking the federal government, if that's what you want to call it, or at least challenging the federal government, is not very good. They've lost on same-sex marriage, they've lost on the Affordable Care Act, and the Attorney General has already said, I think, that this is really a federal issue, not a state issue.
Right. No, in the statement the Attorney General put out, they said, hey, the state is their clients. They'll, obviously they'll do their homework, but I can save everybody a bunch of grief and hassle right now that in this particular area, when it comes to executive orders and principles of federalism and a bunch of stuff that would put even more people to sleep this morning than absolutely necessary, the state of Indiana's options are extremely limited to almost none.
Is this divisive? I mean, do you think this is divisive? What is the Latino population who is legal thinking about this? Because you are talking to voters, right?
You have to imagine that every family sitting around that TV when the president was speaking, and then later when they're watching a Republican response, if that doesn't impact votes in 2016, 2018, 2020, I don't know what does.
And what Mike Pence has to do is Mike Pence has to get through a Republican primary, which is literally like, children of the corn coming out. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Not the Malachi Blue Man sort of way.
But I mean, you watch these Republican primaries, and
please respond to that.
It is really some interesting folks. You have to tack so far to the right, and that's what he's got to do. He's got to win it.
The challenge,
I'm sorry.
Sure, the challenge for my Republican friends on the immigration issue is once you get past, the outrage of the rancor and the Empress-in-Chief rhetoric, what they don't understand from a political perspective, what the president has done is a brilliant tactical move. This is not about the parents of the children who are already citizens. This is about the kids who in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years will vote. And they will be happy because the president did not break up their family.
Yes, and the problem for the Republicans is after the president spoke, there was a flood of statements all opposing this, but not one of them included, here's what I would do instead. Here's what Congress will do.
Actually, just
and this
to
is
clarify,
this is why Senator Coates has some stinging criticism of his own government. We heard from the Senator Coates at the top of the program, but I want to play one more thing for you. We talked to him one more time this past week and asked him what he thought about Americans remember most about this past session of Congress. This is what he had to say.
A miserable failure. It's the worst time in the Congress that I have had in all of my experience to be denied the opportunity to do what you're sent here to do. And you don't always win the debate, but you have a chance to talk about it. You have a chance to debate it. You have a chance to vote on it. And the yes is yes and no is no. But dealing with this president is unlike anything I've ever seen or anyone else that I know has ever seen, including a lot of Democrats. And so we're dealing with something here that's far out of the normal. And I have a hard time understanding it.
Mary Beth, you have covered government. Have we now entered gridlock central? Are we looking at 2015 as a year that there is nothing going to get done in Congress?
Maybe they'll name a post office. That could be the high water mark. I can't imagine that anything is going to happen. And I think Senator Coates was blaming the Senate gridlock, but an immigration bill passed out of the Senate and it sat in the House. This is a problem for both the House and the Senate, and I don't see anything happening that's going to change it. They're all going to be looking at the next election.
Is this great for your party? Can your party now say, look, the Republicans are now in charge. If nothing gets done, here we go 2016. Is this good for you?
I would say that it definitely has an impact, and especially on an issue like immigration, it also has an impact. But what it also does is it also goes back to the focus in Washington has become on who wins the day. It's not about what we do to put forth policies and solutions to benefit people. It becomes on who wins the day and who wins the news cycle.
I would go a little bit different. With Republicans now controlling the entire Congress, I think we have a sort of a more efficient form of divided government. You can't have the place where the House... Yes. You have a situation where the House and something...
Bring back the Queen and Napoleon. I mean, that's where we are.
Actually, Caesar would work well for me.
Caesar.
I mean, the thing is, you have a House and Senate now controlled by the same party, which means you don't have one person in the middle sort of blocking everything. Now everything can go to the president's desk, and now they can really sort of block things out. Hey, we do well when we've had divided government. Worked under Reagan, worked under Clinton.
Mary Beth, how about the Abdul Hakim Shabazz post office? Does that sound good to you?
Oh, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? But I kind of like, I don't know, the Mary Beth Schneider post office.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what Congress can do for both of them.
I just wanted to get me on the postage stamp. That's all I ask.
All right. The conversation between our insiders continues on Twitter. Check out their Twitter handles and give us your opinion and stay up to date with Mary Beth, Abdul, Laura, and Jennifer throughout the week. We want to thank you all for coming on the roundtable. Coming up, the race for Indianapolis mayor, an exclusive Sunday morning interview with Democratic candidate Ed Delaney. Is he staying in the race now that Joe Hogsett is running? That and much more coming up next on Indianapolis This Week. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. For the past 2 weeks, the 2015 race for Indianapolis mayor has taken center stage. Mayor Greg Ballard announcing that he will not run, and Democrat Joe Hogsett confirming he will be a candidate. Now, there's another candidate already in the race on the Democratic side. Joining us now, Ed Delaney, Democratic candidate for mayor of Indianapolis. He has served 6 years in the Indiana House of Representatives. He is also a lawyer and a former law professor. Welcome to the program. Are you in the race, or will you drop out?
I'm in the race. You know, I care about the issues. I want to get beyond personality and politics and develop the issues for this city, and so far I'm the only one who wants to do that, so I'm in the race.
So we are looking at a robust campaign, and we're looking at a May primary.
You're looking at a robust candidate. Whether the campaign is robust is somebody else's judgment.
Fair enough. Let's talk about public safety.
All right.
The city of Indianapolis needs more police. We're talking about a public safety tax. Where do you stand on that position?
I think that's the #1 priority. If we're going to have a good city here, if we're going to have a vision for the city, it has to be underpinned by public safety and by decent streets. If we don't have those two things, we can't do the important things, the long-term things that we need to do. So I think that's fundamental.
Does that public safety tax need to be higher? I mean, how much? We need to hire more police officers, or is that public safety tax enough to sustain what we need?
Well, I don't think it's enough to sustain where we need to get. As I understand it, it's rather limited in what it's going to do. The real problem is that we've allowed all of our tax revenue to be concentrated at the State House, bundled up in a surplus and used in political campaigns. We need to share the wealth. The public should not be paying taxes that just sits over at the State House when city after city has too few police officers and lousy streets.
And what do you mean by that? Are you saying that we're sending money to the state and it just sits in some coffer, or do we?
Yeah, we have $2 billion in reserves that we don't, we need maybe 600, 700 million of that. The rest of it sits there so that we can advertise that we're prosperous and we're good and we love ourselves.
So how much of Indianapolis money then is there? Do we need to go and say,
well, we're 18 to 20% of all the money, so I can do the math. We're $350, $400 million of our money is sitting there doing nothing and not needed while we're here. And it's not just Indianapolis. Gary has the same problem. Hammond, Fort Wayne, they all are short of funds because the property tax caps. We squeeze the local tax revenue and fatten the state tax revenue, and they don't want to share.
Will you, as a state lawmaker, ask them to share in the capacity that you're in now?
I have done that, and I'll be doing more of it starting in January.
Well, on the issue of pre-K, should the homeowners of Indianapolis pay for that, or is that a state responsibility?
I think it's both. Here's the problem, all right? In the 19th century, they had free textbooks. We still don't have them. In the 20th century, they said we should have full-day kindergarten. We still don't have it. Now I'm in the 21st century, and we say we should have preschool. If I'm waiting for the Indiana General Assembly to fully fund it, it'll be the 23rd century. So the city and charities have got to kick in something. I hope they'll kickstart the process, and the legislature will help us all over the state with this process.
The city is currently building a new criminal justice center, possibly on the west side. Is this a good time for that? We're spending a lot of money, or we will be spending a lot of money for that. At the same time, we're having troubles paying for police.
I don't know which is worse, the amount, the place, or the timing. This is a very detrimental proposal in my view.
Do you think we need it? I mean,
we need a jail, but we don't need a $600 million jail. It's just that simple.
Would you stop it if you're the mayor? If you were mayor tomorrow?
If I were the mayor, I would do everything I could to build a reasonable jail, build a decent courthouse, take a look at the city-county building, which is a disaster that no one likes, and look at having some civic pride in some civic buildings. I'm not going to be proud about a big jail. I would be proud of a nice courthouse. I'd be proud of a good city hall, and all of them at a reasonable price. The way we're going, we're going to have none of those. We're just going to have a palatial jail.
30 seconds remaining. Don't mean to do this to you, but as you return to the State House as a lawmaker, as a Democrat, will the Democrats be relevant at all when you return to work in January with such a big Republican supermajority?
I hate to say this, but I'm not sure that anything that's going on there is relevant. We're not pushing on any big issues. There's no vision in the State House.
You say that's an indictment then on you as well, because you're part of the system.
Don't worry. I'm talking.
Okay.
But I don't see the leadership on the other party talking about anything that matters in the long run. They're moving money around.
Nothing?
I listened to the speaker's address the other day. I took notes. At the end of it, there was essentially nothing. I said to one of my friends...
Will you be relevant? Will you as a party be relevant as Democrats?
Yes, but only if we create a vision. And that's why I'm running for mayor. I think we need a vision at the city and at the state. They're connected. If we don't have a vision, And right now my party is weak on that, but the Republican Party is weak on that. That's why I'm running. I want to talk about these things.
Ed Delaney, a Democratic candidate for mayor of Indianapolis, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
We
Good
will
to see you
you
again.
at this roundtable, I'm sure, often.
I'll try to be
You're
here.
promising a robust campaign, right?
That's me.
Coming up, getting to the business of spending the state's money. What to watch this week in the state budget process when we come back on Indianapolis This Week. Now, as we turn our attention to the State House and the General Assembly, lawmakers will get to work this week deciding how to spend your tax money. Our State House reporter Katie Hines is tracking them for you.
The process of crafting a two-year state budget is underway, and it's expected to take several months. It's a process that will affect all of us. Last week, the state heard from the Department of Child Services on a rising caseload for family case managers. And next week, the state is scheduled to hear from FSSA, INDOT, and the DNR on their finances. We'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Katie. And RTV6's push continues Monday night at 11. Tune in for a Storm Team 6 special winter weather outlook. In a way we've never been able to show you before, we'll give you the science behind the season, plus go in depth on why this winter may not be as brutal as last year. It's Monday night at 11 right here on RTV6. We want to thank you for joining us this week on this Sunday for Indianapolis This Week. Remember that we are always on with news and weather on the IndyChannel.com, our website, and on the RTV6 app. You have a great Sunday, and go Colts.